Cool. Alrighty. Couple couple of announcements. I did make an announcement yesterday in the private group where I'm giving access to this indicator, like absolutely free. Like don't worry about it. Like I don't want to charge on this because I want to I want you guys to test it out. I want you guys to tell me what you guys think about it. And for example, if you have like let's say you took like a couple trades this week. Let's say you took 5, 6 trades this week. You have like 3 winners. Like if they're, let's say, 3 different types of sweeps, like I want you to see if there's a commonality in which level is either being swept or which range is in play. For example, let's say I took a short here. It's Command Shift A. Yeah. Let's say I took um a short here, right? So clearly this is a range built on a level 4. So if there's a level 4 range and then your execution is here, then maybe a level 4 structural range is an appropriate LGC that you can potentially take, right? Or let's say like, was there any decent sweep? I mean, there was a sweep, but that's a different time frame. Let me see. So let's say you took, for example, say you took this sweep here. Well, and if it's on M5, well, I also want you to consider the time frames that you're looking at, because the solidified points indicator is based on the time frame that is open at the time. It's like just based on like what TradingView is like showed me. I can't really like make it all cohesive, as in like the level 1 on M1 obviously is not going to be the same level 1 as like H1, but either way they're both going to show level 1, right? Whereas if I could make it cohesive, then it would be like on M1 you would see level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then if you go to like H4 you're going to see like the beginning level being like level 8 or level 7 or something like that, right? Like in an ideal world that would be awesome. But just due to like TradingView having its limits, and there's certain things you can't do with PineScript, especially when it comes to like multi-time frame stuff. It's kind of a bit of a bummer, but either way, it's manageable, because for the most part, I think using this indicator for analyzing whatever, let's say, X trade you're taking, let's say you're taking a level 5 sweep and that's very consistent for you, then you get to also now, whenever you're in real time, you get to see this stuff kind of play out, because obviously this may not be a level 5 at the time. Whenever you're using this, like I would say user replay mode up until like where your entry is. Let's say your entry's here, right? That's only a level 3. So maybe a level 3 sweep at the time, it works out, right? And the only reason why it's a level 3, not a level 5, it's because you need the sweep of the level 4 for something to become level 5, right? And you guys can pretty much see that play out here. Hello? What the hell? Okay. Um, okay, that didn't work. Okay, I need to fix that. Anyways. See, so okay, I don't know why that breaks. Whatever. Let's yeah, you see. So as soon as it breaks, it becomes level 5. Right, and it's a bit iffy. I guess every time you reset, you just completely do the replay again. But the point is like, not only is this going to show you the commonalities um in the setup that you're taking, but it's also going to show you how relevant the setup is to your time frame. For example, if I'm on M5 and I'm trying to trade like this sequence here, right? Say I'm trying to trade this sequence here, right? Or something here. This is only considering level 1, level 2. Whereas if I was to, let's say, look at a full-on transition and want to trade, um, let's say something more recent. Let's go to GU. Let's say I wanted to trade something that has a little bit more distance, let's say I was trying to trade this potential sweep, if it was tradable. I'm not saying that it's tradable, I'm saying if we were to trade it, right? Then this is a completely much better scenario. Why? Because you're accounting for level 3 and level 4 and level 2. Why level 4? Because this is the low that led into the level 3 high. Therefore, that is what increases this as a level 2 to a level 3. And that also accommodates for the fact that there's a lot more time, and just due to obviously the distance here. So if there's more time on the setup, then you get to see that it could be more of, let's say, a intraday setup rather than a scalp setup. And there, it may be more valid here than it is there. All right. Does that make sense? It's blurry,
Sorry,
right?
Fredo. I'm looking at the chat and it's kind of blurry for a lot of people. I thought it was just me.
Let me see. Turn off this display. Does that fix anything? Same thing? Still the same thing?
Yeah, as of right now, it's still the same thing.
Okay. Still the same?
Okay, it's good now. It's good.
Okay, yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's a Zoom thing. I fucking despise Zoom. Despise Zoom with a passion. Um, but yeah, anyways, but does that make sense? Right? For the people who get access to the indicator, I know we got a couple in the call. Right? Which what I want you to account for is I want you to replay into your setups. Blurry again. Fucking. All right, it's gonna be a little bit more laggy right now. Like it's gonna be I put it on standard. I don't know why it does this. But is this better? Like it's a little bit overall, a little bit more laggy, but this is without me like enhancing the quality. Fine. Okay. But anyways, right? The point of the indicator is for you to see what potential levels are being swept or what structural ranges, like what levels are in play to that are, and then you can maybe find some commonalities with your winning setups, right? But obviously, because this is an emergent indicator, meaning like level 1 starts here, like obviously like this cannot be level 4 without this breaking. Therefore, this level 4 does not exist without this. So because it starts from the beginning of price or current price into past price, you kind of have to hit the replay mode every time you go to a new scenario, right? I just want you to notice that, and I also want you to understand that maybe sometimes when you take a loss, you take an LG. Let's say you wanted to take an LG here, but there was no level present, there was no shift, right? So that could just be a sign of either you being too zoomed out or trying to assume that let's say an internal setup is supporting the external move that you're looking for, whereas you should be waiting for an external transition before following that move. Right? Does that make sense? All right, just want you guys to have fun with it. I'll talk about it a little bit more. Maybe I'll make a case study early next week and talk about it. But yeah, that's that. If you guys are in the public group, I'm planning on starting my live trading next week. Obviously for members, you guys will get like I think it's 25% off for everything. So it'll be like a monthly subscription. But for this month, I think for like the next 2 weeks, it's gonna be like 115 for anybody who's not in the group, and then from there it's gonna jump up to like 150. But obviously, if you're in from 115, then that'll be your price from here on, right? And then obviously, if you miss the deadline, then there's no way. But I'll make an announcement on that later today. And other than that, I think that's all the announcements I have. I don't have anything else. But what I do want to talk about today, no trades today or this week. I do want to talk about some stuff, right? Today, this week's call is really gonna be more focused on seeing setups or seeing scenarios where, let's just say, you can probably justify both ways, or the direction is unclear because of XYZ. And one of the two, either there's no clear direction, or the direction is viable on both ways, or there is just a misalignment between, let's say, the middle time frame and then let's say the smaller time frame and the bigger time frame are aligned, but without that middle time frame, usually it's a bit harder to time. All right, so before we get into this week's scenarios, if you guys recall from last week, we pulled up this scenario, which was the GU setup, the GU sell that I wasn't able to get into. But if you guys know or have noted that that sweep is very much in play right now. Right? That sweep is very much in play. It sucks I didn't get in because this is a perfect entry. But the reason why you also want that internal move is because if we are here, right? If we are here, then really, like, the problem with trying to sell here is the fact that we have order flow still present to the upside. The internal momentum is bullish. The internal structure is bullish. So without any true transition here, I just find that even if you do sell, it's a bit higher risk because we still can anticipate this to, let's say, continue higher, complete order flow, dual sweep, and then go lower, right? That's kind of the risk there, but the bias is still kind of in play. Like, you guys can still see that the bearish leg was swept and that's currently in play. And that shows to me that, for example, either we might come here, or best case scenario, in my opinion, we see an internal sweep. This is what I would personally like to see. See some internal sweep, and then have like a transition internally, maybe a dual sweep, hopefully. And then this would be then the catalyst to get us back down here, right? Why? Because of that sweep, right? But more importantly, even if we weren't able to get the best entry, now that this is fully broken, and that shows to me the intention, and that shows to me that this has been correct. So because we're halfway there, we still have another like 100 something to almost 200 pips, you know what I mean? So that alone to me is like, if we get a decent sweep, a decent move, then obviously that would be ideal to then get us a bit lower, right? And we could obviously bounce here, or we can sweep, but obviously I want to prefer the sweep because the sweep would imply that this tried to go higher and then it failed, right? So that's not one of the scenarios I want to talk about. I just wanted to follow up on that from last week. This has kind of been playing out, and I still see it playing out. Right? And so this is where my doubts came in this week. Right? So you guys know that we have that we've been bullish dollar for give or take, what, like a couple months now, over half a year now. But there's obviously been some turbulence in between that. Obviously, even though the macro bias has been technically bullish, we are not technically looking for a buy or a sell every single day, just because the conditions internally have to shift in order to give either a pullback on the external, or give that full impulse, right? Those transitions are usually what we want to look for. So when I'm looking at something like this, right, this is where it gets a bit confusing because we swept, correct? Right? And not only that, there's also a bit of disruption here, right? There's a bit of disruption here, right? And because there's a bit of disruption here, then that technically means that the internal, as of now, is bearish. That means that that's bearish. So we should anticipate the internal to continue lower. But the middle time frame, which is kind of what's making this all kind of awkward, is yes, we have a bearish sweep. Yes, we have this, but we have a higher low, right? And we have a bullish potential sweep, right? And although it is just an immediate sweep and then it kind of transitioned up, there is some decent momentum coming in there. So we're talking about multiple levels here, right? Like, if let's actually pull this up, we can actually see how many potential levels there are here, right? Because it got a bit awkward here. You know what I mean? Like, it got awkward here. And that was H1, correct? Yep. So this is where it gets a little awkward because the overall picture, right? Like the overall picture, right? Let's say these high level 5s here. These are all technically showing us that we're bearish. These level 4s are showing us that we're bearish, right? So the overall trend is technically bearish from a swing POV. But obviously we're in a pullback. We're in recurring bullish structure, right? Shown by the higher low on level 4, and the level 3 leg here is technically still bullish, right? Whereas we just swept the level 2 high, but the level 1s are showing us that we're bearish. So we have level 1 being technically bearish. We have level 2 technically being bullish. We have level 3 technically being bullish, right? Whereas level 4, right, is technically bearish because it's being supported by the level 5 being, giving us the bearish move here. And technically the level 3, this could be a level 3 on another time frame. But do you guys see where this confusion kind of lies? And it kind of makes me uninterested. Why? Because the bias is technically being supported, but I don't have the timing as of now, right, to want to take this lower, right? Because I would consider selling here as a high risk sell because of the bullish sweep, right? Because that bullish sweep could be enough to give me, right, that green line here. And if it gives me that green line here, then obviously then I'm looking for a transition. That would be a bearish sweep that then aligns with this sweep. And then that would be my protocol to want to go lower. But obviously that's not there, right? As of now, all we have is a bullish sweep. We have the internal micro transition, which in maybe on M5, it'd be like a different picture, right? Like if we were to look at this from a internal POV, right, you can clearly see that there's technically the level 1, level 2 here in bullish in the M15, right? But the level 4, we have a level 4 here being bearish because it's a sweep. I'm sorry, not bearish, bullish because of the internal moves. So level 3, level 4 bullish. Level 5 is technically bearish because level 5 is up technically up here too. So this is a higher low. So you guys see how this gets a bit confusing, right? Like it even becomes hard to explain because you can justify both ways, right? But obviously you want to follow the general picture, but you can't follow the general picture unless the internal is also aligned. So that makes it kind of very conflicting, very complicated to want to trade this internally, right? And that's why I noted only a couple of things in the sequence, which is bearish sweep, bullish sweep, bearish POI, not aligned, right? Misalignment. There's nothing here. And obviously I should have actually technically also noted this, but that's kind of like an innate thing that I kind of just see these days. It's right, high or low, that means that they're bullish. Bullish sweep, bullish. Bearish sweep, bearish. Internal, bearish. So that it's conflicting, it's misaligned. So that makes me want to just sit out. Right. And any questions or concerns on this? This is kind of one of those scenarios where you kind of just want to stay away. Right? This is another scenario. This was yesterday. Right? I think I have one or two more. Okay. Yeah, we're in time. Actually, I think this was the follow-up to that. Okay, so let's just talk about the follow-up then, because this is a follow-up to EU, and then we'll go back to UCAD. So this is the follow-up to EU, where the POI. All right, so this is the follow-up to that EURUSD scenario that we just talked about, which is where from the potential POI that we mentioned, price actually continued lower. And there was actually a transition here, which is technically tradable to go lower. But that wasn't a move I was able to catch, right? However, for the follow-up there is that we had now a dual sweep, which if you guys recall, this is the bullish sweep that we're talking about. Now we had a dual sweep. And then that dual sweep led with disruption, right? Because you guys can clearly see there's an intention to want to go lower. That fails, so that's disruption. And so because you have disruption, you have the potential to maybe have a buy scenario. But this is just so choppy, and I don't enjoy trading within like these choppy environments, even if there is technically a scenario, right? Because not only is it choppy, but if we're looking for a buy here, right, we're talking about a continuation of this. So we know that we are technically overall bearish, and we're wanting to play with the bearish sweep, right? Because it's the distance between this sweep and this sweep, right? The distance is much bigger here, right? Therefore, there must be more volume associated here. So if there's more volume associated there, then that's really the general play that I want to take, especially when the overall is bearish. So coming back to this, right? We have the dual sweep, right? And then we have the disruption, right? And then there's potentially a buy here, but it's not my cup of tea. I don't like it. I don't like it. Too many wicks, too low volume. Nothing I like to see here, right? But we did see an impulsive move, and that technically means that you should be looking for the buys, right? But this is once again where that whole conflicting issue comes into play, because the general picture is bearish. So the general picture is bearish, right? And you can even see that they were reacting from a very good POI here, which I really, really wanted to trade, but I just didn't get the entry that I wanted, and I'll show you guys why here. But based on the dual sweep protocol and seeing the disruption, this is a traditional sweep, right? But the traditional sweep is misaligned because it doesn't fit the general picture. So following this continuation would be more difficult. You would actually kind of need some type of transition here. You know what I mean? When you're tapping structure, you would want to see maybe slow momentum, right? And then the transition to the upside. That would be perfect. You know what I mean? So if you see the transition, then this is obviously now supporting that, because that is now going to offset this reaction of the POI, which is then going to potentially aim for here, aim for the equal highs. But what actually happened, right, was it ended up melting here. And it sucks because I wasn't able to trade this because by the time I saw the transition occur, I just wasn't able to get an entry. So the issue with me wanting to take this is I never really like to take a POI or a scenario in Asia session, right? I've said that before, and that's more of a belief than something that I would consider to be fully true. Obviously, there are a lot of Asia moves that occur, um, but it's just like one of those beliefs that I still need to break. And so even though I did want to trade it, right? We broke here, right? So once we broke there, then technically I want to take either this entire POI or this internal POI. And unfortunately, just never reached back. Like I had an alert like here, and if it hit, then I was gonna be in. If not, then obviously no entry. But that was the problem here. I wasn't able to enter just due to that. And if you were to ask, let's say, why not trade per se the potential internal LG? Well, the problem is that this POI is still in play. So until the POI disrupts, then really, or I see, a full-on LG, but there is no high that's being broken, at least any important high. There's obviously an internal high here, but that's also the cool thing about this, right? That's not even a level 1 high. So if it's not even a level 1 high and it's not being swept, then really I'm not really interested in taking it, right? So something cool to note there. But yeah, either way, this ended up not even coming close to transitioning, right? Once it came into this POI, wanted to react, but no true reaction, right? No true reaction. That means that you cannot support that bullish sweep anymore. And that leads us to where we are today, which is the completion of not just the completion, obviously that I already completed, but the continuation of this. And it sucks because there's even a decent little fib here, right at the 70, right? That's perfect. You know what I mean? And why this high, not this high? Because this is it's the internal high that led into this ABC leg, first internal CBOS, right? So therefore that confirms this is a leg. So high, low, retracement, right? And then that's gonna keep continuing lower in my opinion. I think it's still gonna go lower in my opinion. But yeah, that was a second scenario that it was just not clear enough for me to trade, even though we know what the general direction is, right? But it is what it is on that one, right? Nothing to complain about, nothing to be worried about. It's just part of the game, right? Because we're seeing these slow transitions here. But yeah, after last night, I definitely see this, you know, continuing lower. So last one is the USD CAD. And this is another one of those scenarios where it's weird, it's awkward because I didn't show the full bigger picture here. But there is this is the POI, there's a very big transition here occurring, and there's obviously some momentum coming into play, and we do have CBOSs coming into play. Therefore the internal's bullish. But this is also where it gets conflicting because I'm pointing out this POI here. Right? I'm pointing out this POI. Yo, guys, please mute your mics, guys. All right. So I'm pointing out the POI, but there's a couple of problems here when it comes to wanting to continue to be bearish. One, the internal pullback is still bullish, right? That is still intact. That's still intact. But the conflict comes when you start to see this internal sweep. And there's obviously a 3-pin here. I mean, you can call it a 3-pin. We can have a morning star, whatever. Morning star, evening star. I always get them confused. But there is a very clear change there. And there's also, if we were to zoom in, I'll zoom in here once I come into the chart. But there's also an internal break. So there's clearly an internal bearish transition here. But the bullish pullback still intact. But the general direction is technically bearish here. So it makes sense from the entry perspective, but it doesn't make sense from the timing perspective or the bias perspective just yet, because technically, if we're failing to break this, then we should be aiming for here. You know what I mean? And then if that is to then sweep, then order flow is completed, and then now is when you should kind of look for that move. You know what I mean? And if we go to USD CAD, that's why it was getting a bit, that's why it was awkward, because the internal pullback is misaligned with the transition here. So obviously the transition, yes, we're overall bullish, right? But if I really wanted a trade based on this trend, I would love to see at least a pullback into previous structure. So I have to play the internal medium leg here, and not to mention this is a pair that's technically, like, from a broader perspective, bearish technically, because we're trying to play the weekly sweep here. We've been trying to play this for the past couple of months, so especially because we did not break the slow in that first move, nor the second move. So now that we've swept at a major high and we transitioned, although the internal's bullish, I'm trying to play the sweep and hopefully a sweep that aligns with it. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the game plan from the weekly POV, which is like the grand scheme, right? And yes, you could say it conflicts with your USD, but they're not completely negatively correlated, right? Like, they don't completely move in opposite directions, even though they have the USD denominator, right? But coming back into the scenario, we can see, that there is the transition in play here. Like, there is a transition here, right? We can see the break, the internal disruption, right? And then we start to see internal trends to the downside. So yes, the pullback, or yes, the transition's in play. Yes, this is technically internally bearish, although the general direction is bullish, but we're also supporting that weekly sweep and that weekly bias. So it's conflicting on that end. But now, if I even wanted to take the short based on this, I can't even do that because this failed to break, right? And even though we do have the entry protocol here, you guys can see that it's not technically, like, it didn't work out, right? So if we zoom in, let me see. Right, there's potentially a transition here, right? Like, potentially, a transition here where you have obviously that internal sweep, right? And then obviously there is the pattern that we like there, right? And then there is technically an internal range here, right? There is some momentum coming into play here, and there is a reaction here, right? Like this is all technically valid as an entry, like it's technically valid, but it's once you see this sweep and once you see this break into the upside, right? That is then my sign to invalidate this bearish move. And that shows why I was conflicted with the bias, because all it takes is one shift like this, that would then lead me to pursue the highs, because obviously we failed to break this low. So we failed to break this low and we haven't created no man's land, right? So because we haven't created no man's land, we failed to break the low, then we should be aiming for the high. But I can't aim for the high because of that transition based on the sweep that we're talking about, right? So you guys see how things conflict, and therefore it causes me to just kind of sit out. And then you guys can see now it's still kind of like in this range. So very conflicting, right? And pretty much the lesson that I'm trying to get at with that is I have a question for you guys. Do you guys think you guys are better at executing or at finding the bias?
Personally biased.
Uh-huh. Why?
Just depending on direction, I guess.
But they're the same thing.
No, for me it's execution. When I see the model, I trigger.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. Due to fractals. You know what I mean? Every time frame's gonna show you
Yeah,
a
but
trend.
when you layer different layers of structure, it gets confusing at times.
Yeah,
So I try
it
to
does.
keep it simple.
Exactly. And because it gets confusing, that just means that the conditions are different for either or. So for example, I could say that like there's a lot of times where I'll catch myself saying that I won't catch an entry on a bias that I found, but that's because the bias time frame showed me either a model or a sequence or a trend that supports my rules, whereas then the entry side didn't. You know what I mean? But they're still like technically the same, because I think it's safe to say everyone uses the same method to enter and to find a bias, right? Like you kind of have to. So if they're both the same thing and you're struggling with one of them, then it has to be only a certain it can only be a certain amount of things, where it's either the conditions that are present or you're misaligning the levels that are required for the scenario, where and that just means like trying to sell here even though this didn't break, right? Even though this is in play. So that's a misalignment. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're wrong about your rules. You're just missing the fractal side of it, and kind of, let's say level 1 is bearish, but this is technically like, let's say, like a level 2 almost, but level 2 is misaligned, and then level 3 is here, but then level 4 is conflicting. So you have 4, 2, 3, and 1. So you have 2 versus 2, right? So
That's it, exactly. Yeah.
it's misalignment, or it's the conditions that are present, right? Which, I mean, I guess they're kind of the same thing, right? But you know. So yeah, so I'll catch myself saying that, oh, maybe sometimes I don't get my entry, or oh, sometimes I don't get my bias. But the reason why I catch myself saying that I don't catch an entry on a bias that I support, it's because I won't even look for an entry when the bias isn't supported. You know what I mean? So I can't really say that my bias was wrong, but my entry was right, because that technically means that if my entry was right, then my bias is right. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's kind of the small lesson for today. It's you like you say, most people say bias, but like you don't think of the bias being wrong because you wouldn't execute on a bias you wouldn't support. Feel me? Conditions, environment, misalignment, your own eyes. No, misalignment is a rule thing. I mean, technically it's all your eyes, bro. If you want to say your eyes, it's everything is your eyes, dude. The conditions are your eyes too. The bias is your eyes too. Like your bias is just finding something that's, kind of supporting, or the reason why you're looking for a general direction, right? That's your bias. But your execution is using the same thing, but now in an internal scope. Because that's why you kind of have to focus on the opposite side when you're trying to support your bias, because the opposite side has to fail in order for us to catch the move to the downside. Because it needs to fail, because obviously it wouldn't be a pullback if it wasn't opposing your general direction. So like your conditions, right? There's only 3 conditions, right? It's just everything's just a mix of consolidations, a trend, or a manipulation. Combination of these 3 conditions. Misalignment is levels. It's a structure thing. That's a structure thing. And your bias is obviously conditions is kind of tied to bias. So is I mean I guess execution is as well, but yeah, it's just this is kind of the issue with trading. It's all like the number one problem is fractals. Like fractals is like the number one problem with everything. That's what makes this everything so difficult. And like the counter to saying fractals is like, okay, we'll just focus on like one time frame, or focus on like focus on less time frames, or focus on one time frame. But like that's not the point. Like the point isn't the amount of time frames that you're using. It's that are you able to read, right, the opposite of your bias to time your entry? Like the time frame doesn't really matter. The time frame sets doesn't even matter. If anything, more time frames makes it more complex, but it also gives you more information, more context. Right? So it's not necessarily a time frame thing. It's just a rule thing. It's an alignment thing. Yeah, and I guess I just also still have to figure out how to use it, because like I also get it wrong too. Like I also sometimes downplay how many levels are in play, because it's so difficult to like, especially if you're like here, it's so difficult to account for so many different levels with the amount of data that you're looking at. You know what I mean? It's really hard to account for 5 levels at a time.
Yeah, and I also think that it goes hand in hand with what you're saying, because I'm starting to see that some of my losing trades is not really because the bias was wrong, more so because, like you said, you have to see how things fail and react once it reaches a certain point. Like have to see the opposite side fail. And I kind of think now that I kind of get your statement when you say it's hard for you to flip um your execution or whatever you were looking at after you get that quick reaction at the end, like while you're already in it. Like as
Mm-hmm.
that play still moving, you're like it's hard to flip my bias like that. I'm starting to see how and why that's possible, especially when you identify your levels so coherently or clearly, I could say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because obviously, like to change your bias, like usually you gotta run through like 2 to 3 different invalidations. Like let's say EU. Like here, if I wanted to buy here, if I wanted to buy here, right? Let's say high momentum, right? Shift, whatever, right? Something has invalidated. But if I really want it to be full on bullish, like this also has to be invalidated too. So that's why the general direction is usually pretty easy to see, but timing it internally is a bit more difficult, because you can say, right, oh, you could even say here, let's say that once we see this break, okay, now I'm aligned, but like my target is here, so the RR isn't worth it. Whereas if I don't wait that far, and let's say I want to take it here, then I'm still technically bullish from some
That's
type
where
of
I
level.
bought today.
So you see, it's what makes
And
it
it's
difficult with
technically
the alignment.
bullish here, the transition here. That's where I bought today, and then
Yeah, on like one level, level 1, level 2.
yeah, and
But
then I then gotta move the
mhm,
sell, but
yeah, and then the problem is like the level 4s and level 5s are still technically bearish. So I don't know, like what I really want to do with this indicator is add on to this, right? Because obviously here for the 5-minute, this is like current trend, but I could also have a separate table where it could be like levels trend or levels bias, which is like we're on M5, or I could actually set it like to the side of it. Sorry. Like let's say I move. Let's say this moves to the right, and let's say I have a table either underneath or to the right of it, saying okay, level bias. That's kind of what I really want to do. Whereas I need to figure out if it's, because based on what I'm seeing, right, it's usually like a level, like for example, level 5 to the level 4, the lowest level 4, that means that you're bearish on that level. But I don't know if I should specify that as level 4 yet or level 5. Whereas this should technically be a level 3, but it can't, like, I can't put that as level 3 yet because the level 2 hasn't been taken. You know, so therefore the level 3 into the level 2 here, this is still technically bearish. Right? And then obviously level 2 to level 1, which would be here, that's technically bullish. Right? So then technically, let's say level 1 is a bit more complex. So I might not be able to do level 1 because you need level 0. And if you do level 0, let me show you guys where that's complex. Like you know, like technically level 1 is level 2. You guys know that? Like, you see, level 0s are the internals, the ones that don't really matter. But those that don't really, but once you break a level that doesn't really matter, that becomes level 1. So level 1, but that's kind of what I really want to do with this indicator, or with after you guys give me feedback on this, is make a separate table on top of the direction indicator, and then make it level 4, level 5, level 5 to level 4. That would make level 5 bearish, and then level 4 to level 3, which is technically should be here, right? Should be technically then bullish. But if it cuts price, then obviously it would be not valid. But you guys see the vision, right? Does that make sense?
Definitely see
Not
the
only have
vision.
the general current trend, but also have the internal trend, so you guys can see all the levels that are in play. Yeah, it's fine. I'll look at them later, bro. But yeah, I don't want to like ramble on, but it's just, this is the problem. It's fractals. This is like the hard part. This is like this to me, this is the hardest part about trading, is understanding the fractal side. And like, it doesn't matter what you're trading as long as you understand that there's scale to it and there's like dimension to it, right? And more than you think. That's what I think that matters. All right, but yeah, this is but yeah, it's a bit complex. It's a bit complex. Figuring this out, because there's obviously going to be like an interruption with like some of the biases where it's like if it cuts price, it doesn't really um it's not really considered a trend. Like for example, level 5, level 4 to level 5, that's technically bullish. But yeah, I'll figure that out. We should be able to get that done in like a month or so. But yeah, that kind of sorts out today's little lesson. It's like, you think your bias is like the hard part to find, but it's only because you wouldn't take a execution if your bias wasn't if you didn't believe that was the bias, right? That's why it seems easier to find the bias, right? But really it's kind of the same because they're fractals. It's just the conditions and the levels that are in play on each. All right, that's right. Does that make sense? Bit of a mind, like I don't say a mind fuck, but like kind of twist, like it kind of gets you thinking, you know? But yeah, should we talk about biases first, or should we get into case studies right away? Cool. Case studies. All right, we only have a couple anyway, so it's fine.
I'll send some.
Oh, okay, this is good. I like this. This is good. Do you have anything in the Discord?
I'll send into Discord. No moment.
I'm also gonna make some changes to the Discord. Like I actually wanted to I wanted to put all of this into like one page on the website and then just kind of direct you to the page just to make it easier. Like this too. Like all of this is kind of just be in one page on the website, and then I delete space on the Discord, look a little bit more compact. Ah, this is nice. This is good. This is good. This is good. Sweep clearly is a dual. Excuse me. Clearly is a dual sweep here, right? And I like when the dual sweep is actually another sweep. I like that. Cool little detail for you guys. It's like, yes, there's a sweep here, but you guys can see that there's a bearish reaction here, and then that's swept. I really like when dual sweeps do that, because even if you don't catch this, you could probably trade like the entire POI, or obviously like you could trade like how he did it here. But you could technically trade like the entire POI, and then this should really kind of roll over. That's really cool. Like, let me see. Yeah, like that could really roll over there. H1, and it's also to buy to sell. Yeah, like that's how you get a really good entry there. But I don't know if it'll hold since it's Friday. So it was here. Wait, am I looking at the right thing? Dow Jones 3-minute. Am I tripping here? Oh, this is 3 days ago. What the hell, man? I guess that was here. Oh, okay, no, never mind. Yeah, disregard me because of this sweep. Disregard. But yeah, I'll get to yours here in a bit. All right. So this is the Euro sweep. This is technically bullish. That's disruption. That's good. Like that entire thing is good. The problem is like, even if you break here, like your invalidation is still here. That's what kind of sucks there. Yeah, and then there's a POI here, but the invalidation is still technically up here. Yeah, that's good. You did leave your stop there. That's good. That's good. Because this is kind of starting that internal trend. CBOS, so that kind of makes this a range, even if it's not like very like high momentum. Since it doesn't have high momentum, it's still technically like the range. That's when it's being solidified. So because it's being solidified here, you can see that POI, but the invalidation is good. So even though the entries are not like my preferred, it's good that you're using the right invalidation. That's what's keeping these going. Whereas now it's like, okay, you're right, you have LGC, so this is your new invalidation. But like if I was Zebra, like I'm easily putting my stop loss like in profit. And then I would have taken some partials here out of all positions. And the cool thing, because you have so many different positions, right? You can scale out in a very creative way. For example, if you really wanted to, you can obviously move your stop here, right? Or you can scale out like a little bit more on some positions, and then those positions you can hold. Whereas the ones where you still have high volume, you can maybe take less of a partial and then move your stop further so you secure a little bit more profit. All right. That's kind of a creative way to scale out when you have so many positions. And if you do the math, it actually works out if you do the math. right? Because if it works out, like you're holding a little bit more volume on a scenario that can reach another what 50 pips, you know what I mean? And that can really scale, you know what I mean? Like this technically should roll over because it's completing. I don't think we swept here, but the sweep is technically completed here. But because it's overall bearish, like I wouldn't be surprised if we aim for here. And the thing is, like we're following general trends, so this can continue even further. Like this is technically like a redistribution setup here. You don't see these a lot, redistributions. Let's see. Yeah, you see, yeah. The problem with the buys, it's like whenever I see something like this, it's like I don't want to buy here. I want to sell here because of buy to sell, right? And then even though there's like a transition here, OFD, even though there's like OFD, right? Like I can't really, I don't really want to sell here. I'm not too confident because I still see that there's a premium left over. But I can't justify buying here after such a like big falling knife. It's just very difficult. See big bearish candles on like an H4. No, thank you. No, thank you on the buying. Because it's gonna take a lot for this, right, to offset this.
And that was my thought process to continue to the premium.
Yeah, wait, hold on, guys. Give me a sec.
You can see
Hold
the
on, give me
other
one sec. Give
photo,
me one
yeah.
sec. Give me a sec. Give me a sec. All right. Oh yeah, I gotta go soon. So let's get done stuff quick. But yeah, what were you saying?
Yeah, exactly. I was aiming for the premium. You can see the next photo is like a small transition inside that small range. That's why I took the.
Yeah, no, I see the push. I see the push. It's just I can't justify going against. Okay, why is this not deleting? Oh no,
To
this
say
is
it's not like
Zoom.
a high
Zoom.
probability.
Which one?
This one, like the high probability setup is buy.
You would consider that a high probability, even if it's give or take, very bearish, and then very bearish.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Look the next photo,
Yeah.
the
Let's see.
internal, just to see the transition.
Yeah. No, I see the transition. But also it's like you can confuse this. Like there's potentially sweep here, but there's also like the fact that this is a bearish break that's aligned with the bearish move. So like that doesn't mean sell, right? But it also doesn't mean to buy, you know what I mean? Like you can be bullish without buying and you can be bearish without selling.
I see.
You know? So the problem
Yeah.
is, yeah, it kind of falls back to where like, for example, if we have a, let's say a level 3 push, like let's say it's level 3 or 4, you need a level 1 transition to perform a level 2 pullback. You know what I mean? So these moves right there, they're necessary to get the pullback in for level 3, level 4.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Selling at a discount. It's a problem. Nice transition. I like the transition. Right. I don't think we've given this a name where you just see the final push fail and that creates a buy to sell. I don't even know what to classify that under. Yeah, that's very good. The transition is there is very, very good. I don't know I don't know what to call these. What would you guys consider this? Right. We've talked about this before when you have that little push that then creates the buy to sell. Fuck. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't like when I'm getting calls out of nowhere, my bad. Let's see. You wouldn't call it an LG? I mean, yeah, it's an LG, but this is a very common this is a very like I'm very confident about entries that do this. Very, very confident. You could say it's order for completion, right? It could be a couple of things, but it's just that little pattern. I guess yeah, I guess it'll fall under order flow completion. That's fine. But yeah, that's a very good trade though. I think you showed me the outcome. Yeah, very good. Ah, you see? Oh, I now I remember. Now I remember. So this is cool, bro, because this is why I like sweeps and when the general bias is like in play, because we already talked last week about how GU was technically bearish as like a from a swing POV. So whenever you have a sweep that's like technically in play or technically valid and you get the entry, like this is worth holding when the general bias is supporting you because the sweep is a failed reversal. You know, it's a failed move to the upside. It's the beginning of a new leg. So this could be a partial spot and then you move further. That's why sweeps are so effective because they signify the beginning of the move. That's why GU, GU, AU, like this. That's why this is such a like I'm very confident if I see another sweep here like on let's say an H1M15, then that's worth holding longer, not just the completion of the sweep. Same thing with AU, right? Even though it's not it still hasn't fully given you that move, you still see that the transition is there. So even though this is a move here, what if there's a bear? There's technically a sweep. We'll come back to this, but because there's a sweep, if you get an entry, right, that can be held longer because of the alignment. But yeah, it's good. Two. Okay. Aggressive, yeah. Aggressive because this is the you stop using this. because the sweep of this low signifies a bullish range. So I have to assume the completion before I look for the transition. Like, yeah, there is a sweep here. But you would need like a disruption internally for me to justify going for the low. Aggressive entry. Too aggressive. Yeah, this is aggressive. Is this in play now? Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know. I would have taken the partial at like 50% maybe. Hold break even. Because this could easily roll over. Right? And confirm the sweep because of high momentum that came in. Or it can continue the internal trend. That's why like I would really like to see like all this get swept next week. That would be perfect for me. Immediate momentum after sweep. Yeah, but you couldn't assume the immediate. You can't like account for immediate momentum when it's not there yet. Like you took the entry before the momentum came in, so you can't account for that at the entry. What time frame? There is no time frame. Like immediate momentum is just there or it's not. It can be on any time frame. Like this is immediate momentum. H4. Like immediate momentum is just counter to the opposite move. So like if we consider this to be immediate momentum, that is compared to this, right? And although they're similar, this broke the internal structure. So that's why I consider that immediate momentum. See, like this is also like immediate momentum because of how slow this is. What do you mean the M5 candle?
I think he was answering my question, at least for this scenario. But I'm starting to see how you meant like seeing how the transition goes against the opposite slower
Yeah,
momentum, I
like
should
the
say.
immediate
Because it wasn't
opposing.
completed to
Mm-hmm.
be considered immediate momentum until we got that sweep that allowed you to tell them go break even. So I'm seeing that.
Mm-hmm. Like you can't compare this to like this because there's no relation. But this influences a bearish bias because of this. So that's how it influences this. It would offset this if we swept and then momentum came into play. But obviously this immediate momentum is in relation to this. No, that's not that's not enough, bro. That's not enough for me. That's not enough. If that was the reason why it won, then it would have gone immediately. Notice that it had to sweep. This move worked out because it swept. But yeah, is that all for case studies today? Let's see.
No, there's more to this.
Which one?
Before those, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
these
this
two.
is good. This is good. I like this. See, so you see how the bearish move is then aligned? That's perfect. And then if you then correlate this with the external bias, you can hold further.
Yeah, that was my bad.
Yeah, so it's just that's why I like seeing these like these bigger time frame sweeps, especially sweeps, because sweeps, like I said, they show the beginning of the move. So if they show the beginning of the move, then all you got to do is follow internally. But yeah, this one's good. I like this one. Stop using that. Let's see. Yeah, I like this. I like the buy to sell here. See, this is another good example of that, where you just see the final push, boom, and that's also OFD technically. But the buy to sell is the result of this completion and then the transition. So the buy to sell is the perfect move there. But yeah, this is good. When was this? This is a New York session.
I think, no, it was London. London 3 days ago.
Oh, nice, nice.
And this one, yeah, I took on, yeah,
Oh, okay. So you see, this is another good one. So this one, although it wasn't like a immediate move, it works out because of this and because of this. So it's technically LGC and then LGC. This is good. And then the target was met. What is this? Euro?
this was last week on EU before the market closed.
Yeah. And then what's cool is like, you see how it invalidated you? That means that this is technically bullish. So then now that this failed, another re-entry to go lower. But yeah, this is good. Uh, okay. I mean, I don't see the reason for the entry, but this is a LGC technically, high momentum transition, but this is technically dual sweep. So like the high momentum here just offsets me. Like I don't like that. So then if I was to see this, the transition, then obviously this is another POI to go higher. Um, but yeah, the only thing that throws me off is like the dual sweep and then the high momentum, even though like you're technically bullish. This is it's the only thing that's throwing me off. Okay, we talked about this one. Was that all that I missed? Okay. Okay, this isn't a bad, it's not a bad idea here. It's not a bad idea, but like this is a CBOS, CBOS. So the target is here. So if the target has been met, then it's kind of hard to justify taking the continuation again. If that makes sense. Like, for example, notice that it's until you sweep something important. Why is this important? Because this is the pullback high of this. So it's only until you see this, and I mean, there's a transition here. What is this? NAS. So if you want to differentiate sweep and sweep, think distance, think the importance of the level is just pretty much how high can you relate this certain point to be. Like, for example, if I was to, like, this is an important high, even though this is the same level high as this one is technically preferred because it also is a higher levels pullback high, which is like this. Right. So although they could still be both be considered level 1 highs, this one can be considered level 4, whereas this one cannot only be considered level 1. right? Not to be exact, but just to show the point. But yeah, this is a good idea, but right, the target has been swept, right? And seeing the continuation is just a bit too optimistic. I want to catch the full move. Because if I'm trying to catch the immediate continuation, then I have to at least partial here, but I can't partial here if it's already been taken. And this one, I mean, this isn't bad. The problem is reversal. This is very bearish. So technically, like, you should be anticipating this to go lower, but technically, like, at this point, even this is internally bearish. So this is technically like a very high risk reversal, right? That's why it came back to your entry and then went higher, right? Because the timing is off. Like, this is overall bearish. This is bearish. This is bearish because it broke that, right? So I have to assume it will continue lower, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sell. So it's only until this breaks. Okay, now that confirms the reaction of this POI because of that break. And so then that would then give me the potential to either start looking for something here, but this has already been mitigated. So buying here is just a bit difficult. What is this? AJ? Weird pair. Reversal again. You see, I want to sell based on sweeping this because it's bearish. What the other bigger picture may be, because this is what M1. What the bigger picture is also like important. Because technically this is bullish, right? So your direction for the execution is right and the target is correct. So it's not a bad trade, but I'm just but if this is what you're looking for, and that's fine. But I want to see this full move if the external of this is also aligned. Because technically the transition's there. Now it's just a matter of getting the entry, but it's just to aim for here when this is bearish. I just don't find that worth it, because this will lead to a lot of losses in the future. Yep, I think that's it. Anybody else? Oh, I think we did have one more. Here we go. Oops. Daily SC. I mean, this is technically a sweep. Okay, direction's right. You should note this as well. Should note this. I mean, the bias is right. The timing, I mean, the internal timing is technically right too, because you have this. But the problem, if you want to just take this, is like this has not fully solidified yet. So you see this solidifies here. Right? So this is like I don't even know why you're putting your stop here, but if you wanted to take this position here, it's just different because this is not solidified until this occurs. So it's only until this occurs that I think I should want to pursue something. Whereas I can really just take the whole thing and then just kind of ride this lower. But the only issue is you're taking the POI, you're taking the continuation, but there has been no solidification of the range.
Why did he put a stop there?
Yeah, so
Did he
so
get
I'm
lucky or
wondering.
what?
Yeah, I'd consider that a lucky move. But yeah, the only issue is like internal trend, CBOS, solidification. Now is when you should be looking for the position. One more
What do you
chart.
do if the solidification doesn't occurs at a premium when it's like a downtrend? You still take it as a
Well,
solidification, or
it
maybe
depends
take.
on where this is in comparison. Like for this scenario, it just depends on where that is. Because there is a sweep here. So if you have alignment of sweep, then that's different. Like there's sweep here. And then there's a transition. So if there's a sweep here and it's confirmed, then obviously I can aim for this. So that would make sense as to why he's looking for the bearish move. It makes sense only because it's looking for the appropriate target. I mean, yeah, but you're just kind of following the trend here. Like the problem is like the appropriate target for this is this because there has been no solidification. There's no sweep. So there's no sweep. You don't know where the move is going to begin. So if you're obviously not catching the beginning, you're catching when while it's going, but you also don't know when it's going to end. Doesn't matter where your TPs are. That's not the point.
So, question: would his invalidation be better if it was on the
I mean,
second left?
I can't tell you. I couldn't tell you. Like the invalidation of like you trying to follow that is here because
No, I mean the second high. I'm sorry, around like 8:15.
I mean, if you want to be a little safe, you could do like this, which is the OFD.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. If we're playing sweeps and not trying to continue,
Yeah.
but at the start of the move, maybe.
Yeah, but you can't assume that. Like you can't assume the move's gonna begin here. Like you can't assume that this is gonna come up sweep and then go. Because we're trying to
Can you
play it after it does this.
say we're still bullish like here?
Yeah, the internal, yeah.
CBOS.
Yeah.
uh,
And it's that failure here. That's the reason why we enter, because that shows that the failure is the beginning of the move. But yeah, I think that's that. I really hope GU gives a pullback next week. That would be cool. Because if we get a sweep here, then I get to complete the full-on transition. The full-on, I'm sorry, the full-on sweep. Right, we swept the monthly high, swept this high, change. And then this is also going to be a very good weekly. See that? Engulfing, technically. So yeah, I see this rolling over next week. Pretty cool. Same thing with AU. Same scenario. The cool thing about this one is like, this one can probably go on Sunday. Because my initial scenario broke even. Because it ended up giving this internal sweep, LG. Right? That's a reason to exit. But then we had the sweep, the break, right? And then this is like the first initial bearish leg. So it's just like now I wouldn't even be surprised if we don't even pull back much from here. Like it would be cool to see that get swept next week. Maybe it's a bullish range, complete order flow, and then this would be like the catalyst to not only get us to the monthly low, but to the sweep low. It's what we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. Right? We were like here when I first brought it up, I think. One of the case studies. So now we have the transition, bearish leg, kind of alignment. So now it's just a matter of getting some type of entry and hopefully getting us lower. EU, yeah, this one too. I definitely see that's rolling over now, especially after what happened here. This is a failed move. So clear bearish trend, but I don't know if this is gonna pull back any further. What did this one end up doing? Yeah, this one's going to continue higher. It looks like the internal leg, bullish leg, is still in play. So now I can just assume this to be still bullish, at least until we complete that high. And then from there, who knows, you know? Last $1. Yeah, we want this one to get that target we've been talking about. Do you guys remember we were talking about this like 2 weeks ago?
Yes, but I wanted a deeper
Yeah.
pullback. We didn't even touch that
Yeah, but look at this one.
post by the sell.
Yeah, but look at this one. Sucks.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, this.
Mm-hmm. It came so close. That's what kind of just irritated me a bit. But now it's,
Yes,
yeah,
threw me off.
we're
Like
gonna, yeah.
inducement and then continue lower. That's what I was my whole bias for the week, but it worked out, I guess.
This one's bearish. I don't want to hear nothing about this. It's bearish. Failed to break the high, swept the weekly high, came back, and now we're seeing rejection. Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you. Very nice. I want this to go lower. You guys remember, I think last week we talked about the divergence here. As you can see, sweep of the highs. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, no sweep of the high. Divergence. Very clear. So now, this is looking decent internally, actually. Swept the weekly high. We clearly wicked here. So this is a very clear move. So, like, this is a... I really want to see this roll over again for next month. Yep. Give me that. Give me that. See? Give me that, and then give me like 30K or something. That'd be cool. Like, next clear target is like here. But yeah, any questions, guys, before we hop off? ETH is probably better looking.
Nope.
Yo, do you still follow those Wyckoff guys?
Nah, man. She
Yeah, I
was
got.
ass. I'm back to the normal stuff, man.
Yeah, I didn't like it, bro. I didn't really like it.
It's fucking trash. This is like this is shit. Oh, this shit is trash, honestly. And Forex is much nicer than crypto anyway.
Yeah, I never got into it. Conditions are different because there's less data.
Yes.
Hey,
This
what's
is
your take
nice. Making money, it's good.
on futures right now? Or transitioning from Forex to futures.
What?
What's your opinion on transitioning from Forex to futures?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. If you want to trade like pound futures rather than GU, it's kind of the same thing. Price action is very similar. I just like CFD benefits because I get because I'm a dual citizen. But like it's relatively the same. You could make arguments for both. Like, but usually the people transitioning to futures can't have access to like good brokerages for CFDs. But like I have a solution for that. I've been telling you guys that. It only costs like $300, I think, and you're not paying me. Which I need to make an announcement on that on Discord too. I keep forgetting about that. But yeah, like if you guys are like from the US and like want to have access to like a good CFD broker, like you just need to sign up for like a digital residence, and then that gives you access to like all the cool broker, at least any broker that supports that island. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat little loophole. But I try to keep it low key because don't want it to get patched.
at all. That's real.
Yeah. But yeah, I do need to make like a little announcement on that. And I can walk you guys through it. And then obviously you could either, because I use two brokers. I use Stoic and I used Vantage. Hmm. But yeah, guys, any more questions, concerns?
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, man, you guys have a good weekend.
S-
Expect some more announcements this coming week.
See you next week.
Cool. And also, like, I still let me see. If you guys can help me out with getting the stars up on here, if we get to
Yes,
100,
we
I'll make
gave you
this. I
5
know.
stars. We give
Like, I just need 100 reviews, and I'll make the next free book. Like, I'll literally start on the spot. But yeah, guys, if you guys can get this to 100, like, that would be cool. And then I'll start the next free book.
safe.